the White House apparently thinks you're dumb and thinks it can convince you that what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're spending isn't reality. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call gaslighting. There is an economic report that is due out on Thursday. It is the second quarter GDP data. And if it reflects a second quarter decline in GDP, there was a decline in the first quarter, then the widely accepted sort of definition of a recession would be met. But the White House and its economic advisors are slowly behind the scenes trying to convince Americans that that's not really what a recession is. They posted this blog post at whitehouse.gov. The headline, "How do economists determine whether the economy is in a recession?" It starts by saying, what is a recession? What is a recession? Well, some maintain that 2 consecutive quarters of falling real GDP constitute a recession. That is neither the official definition nor the way economists evaluate the state of the business cycle. So clearly, if they have to write a blog post on whitehouse.gov entitled, "How do economists determine whether the economy is in a recession?" that's a pretty good indicator that they're very, very worried about the potential of a recession. So they write this blog post basically saying the accepted definition or standard for recession that we've used for years and years and years is not actually the accepted definition for recession, and it's much more nuanced and complicated than that. And of course, the administration made the rounds on cable news trying to, I think, prepare Americans or gaslight Americans ahead of this report on Thursday.
Comments from some saying 2 quarters of negative growth in a row, that's a recession.
Right, and certainly in terms of the technical definition, it's not a recession. The technical definition considers a much broader spectrum of data points. We are seeing a slowing. That is not only expected but necessary as we operate through this transition. So that's where our focus is in terms of diagnosing the economy. That's going to be our focus, and I think that we need to train that focus on that rather than on sort of technical debates about backward-looking data.
Next week's a very big week for the economy. So I read the CEA blog. Is the White House trying to change the common definition of a recession because next Thursday the GDP numbers coming out are going to show that we've been in a recession?
So let me say this, the strength of our labor market along with the other economic factors is what we generally see in a recession or even is not what we generally see in a recession or even a pre-recession, because we're seeing the strength of the economy and the labor market. So that's really important to note there because those are key elements as we talk about that, as folks keep asking us about that. So Americans across the country are back to work at a historic level. 21 states, the most in history, have unemployment rates at or below 3%. That is an important number to note. 14 states are now at their lowest unemployment rates since this series began in 1976. And last month, the unemployment rate was a new low in 8 states. So again, the strength of our labor market, along with the economic indicators, is not what we generally see as we talk about recession or even pre-recession.
But the growth of the job for the 3 months trend, the growth of job growth in the U.S. is shrinking, is decreasing, and 7.5 million people, a growing number, are multi-jobs, meaning they have to work more than one job to afford a living. So is jobs really a good indicator there?
Look, here's what I would say. We've always talked about the strength of our economy. We've always talked about how historic it's been, and we've always talked about the transitioning, right? The transitioning to more stable and steady growth. And so to your point about the job growth there, this is what we have been kind of stating for the past several months. Look, the economy created 1.1 million jobs in the second quarter. And around 375 jobs per month. Those are historic numbers. Those are, if you think about the 1.1 million jobs, we are back to where we were at pre-pandemic levels. So that is what we see as strength of the economy. Again, we're going to transition into a more stable and steady growth, and so we're going to continue the work that the president has set out to do to make sure that we continue to deliver for the American people when it comes to the economy.
So according to the White House, what really matters is not real GDP, is not a potential second quarter of real GDP decline. What actually matters is job creation and consumer spending, which they say are great. Those are the things that matter. The high gas prices you've been paying at the pump, that doesn't matter. Inflation at a 40-year high, well, that doesn't matter. The fact that only 18% of Americans think the economy is in good shape, that doesn't matter. The fact that President Joe Biden's approval ratings, largely because of his handling of the economy, are in the gutter, that doesn't matter. If you think for a second that Democrats would be encouraging Americans to accept a new, more nuanced definition of recession if we were under a Republican president, then you're fooling yourself. But I know that nobody who listens to Undivided thinks that, because we all have, like I said, a brain, and we can think for ourselves. I think what really bothers me about this, and you're going to see a lot of back and forth in the media about, the White House trying to redefine recession ahead of this report on Thursday and what the actual definition of recession is. Honestly, I don't care. I don't care how the White House wants to define recession. I don't care how economists want to define recession. All I care about is how people are actually doing and how people are actually feeling. All I care about is that working class Americans can afford to fill up their gas tank without having to worry about whether they can also pay for food. All I care about is whether someone's paycheck is going as far as it was last month. We get so caught up in the media and politics of trying to define something, trying to say, oh, does this meet the definition of recession or not? How are people doing? How are people faring economically? How are people getting by? The answer is not well for many middle class and low income Americans. Isn't that what matters at the end of the day? Not if you can score some political win or get out of being the president that put us into a recession. This has been my complaint about Joe Biden for months, about his blame game when it came to gas prices, how he blamed everyone you could think of. He blamed Putin, which I think that obviously has something to do with it. But then he blamed Republicans. He blamed former President Donald Trump. He blamed mom and pop gas stations. He blamed oil producers. I mean, anyone he could think of on Twitter to blame, he blamed for the cost of gasoline. And now, I don't know if you saw this, the cost of gas has been going down a little bit. And now, all of a sudden, that gas prices are on the decline. Biden's Twitter account is taking credit for every single penny. He tweeted, "For American families looking for a little more breathing room, these savings matter." It was accompanied by a graphic that said, at current prices, the average driver will spend $35 less per month for one person or $70 less per month for a family with 2 cars than they would have if gas prices stayed at their peak. And then he keeps tweeting out the update on where gas prices are, down 65 cents over 40 days. He tweets, "If you live in South Carolina, Texas, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, or Tennessee, the average price of gas at the pump is under $4 a gallon. That's a big deal." I should note that those are all Republican states who have lower gas prices than, say, a state like Washington or in California, where they tax gas to high heaven, and that's why gas here is significantly over $4 a gallon. And it's always interesting to me. One more from the president. You might have to be watching the podcast to see this, but he tweeted out this picture of him. And of course, the president has COVID-19, so he's sort of been in his office. And I wish the president a speedy recovery from his COVID. And he's got this, his staff just fails him, this dumb picture, him sitting at his desk on this Zoom with economic advisors. And he's got this chart, and it says average retail gas prices. And the chart is just plummeting. Makes it look like gas prices have dropped $4 a gallon. And he tweeted it out saying, or his staff did, "Gas prices are declining at one of the fastest rates we have seen in over a decade. We're not letting up on our work to lower costs even further." Yeah, when they get that high, not a surprise that they would then decline at the fastest rate in over a decade. And, this is what I go back to about, look, if you want credit for gas prices falling, you have to take credit for gas prices rising. You have to take the blame for that. When you're the president or the governor or whatever it is, every problem is your problem. Every solution requires you to work towards a solution. And so I just think this is ridiculous. And to me, it's so transparent. It's just reading the president's Twitter timeline is so transparent to me about the desperation, the gaslighting. And I just think, who reads these tweets and thinks, "Oh, thank you, Mr. President, you're doing a great job." Again, it's not about politics. It's about leadership. It's about just acknowledging that, look, things are tough for Americans right now. There's no way around that. I'm not going to push off blame. I'm the president. I'm going to try to make things better. And that's all, at the end of the day, I care about. Focus on making things better. Don't focus on trying to convince Americans that we're not actually in a recession if we are in a recession. Don't focus on trying to convince Americans that you're responsible for some monumental drop in gas prices when they hit record numbers under your watch. Just try to make things better. At the end of the day, that is what matters most, and that is what should matter most to the President of the United States.
If you like this video, make sure to become an undivided subscriber to help us grow this mission to give common sense a comeback. You can do that in 2 ways, at patreon.com/undivided, or by becoming a contributor on my Locals community, BrandiKruse.locals.com. Thank you to the founding sponsor of Undivided, 1530 Mortgage. Visit them at 1530mortgage.com.